Hey everybody, Teching and Barry here. Hey, this has nothing to do with anything, but would you like to see the very first cell phone I ever owned? All right, here it is. This is it right here. This is the Singular LG C2000. Singular is not even a company. It hasn't existed for like 20 years, but here it is. This is where it all started. I got this back in 2004. Yeah. The flip phones, man, you know, the clamshells, I don't know, they've had some charm that I kind of miss in, like, modern-day smartphones, right? Okay? Well, anyway, I was going to film something with this. I was going to, because it was capable of doing video. It was really crappy, but it was capable of doing video. I was going to film something with this and show you the quality. I don't think there's a way to connect this to a computer. That's how old this is. Oh, God. But yeah, this takes me back. Comment down below what your very first cell phone was so I can feel old. All right. Anyway, we're actually going to go back to the 90s here in a moment with a reference. Just table that for right now. But in the last chapter of One Piece, okay, we got an interesting piece of information that was dropped by Gunko. Just offhandedly by her. It wasn't really anything like that's super crazy, but she was talking to Shanks' hot brother as they were interrogating Loki. You know, like they were trying to get Loki to join the Gods Knights, to join the Celestial Dragons. Loki is a real Chad, so he flatly declines. But you know, Shanks' hot brother is just like, hey, you know, do we have any intel on this guy, on Loki? Like, what's going on here? And Gunko is like, oh my God, everybody is so inept around here. Every single agent we've sent to this island ends up getting captured by a giant crow, and then we lose contact with them. That was funny because they have no context of what that means, but we do, all right? So that means, I'm assuming they were referring to Cipher Pol agents, right? Like they were sending, not other Gods Knights. That would be really funny, but no. All the Cipher Pol agents, they were sending to Elbaph to initially gather information on Loki. And you know, in the review, I mentioned that the Cipher Pol agents were going to, like, try to interrogate Loki like Gunko and Shanks' brother are doing right now. That might not have been the case. They might have just been going to Elbaph to, like, learn the whereabouts of Loki, just to gain some intel, like scout out the situation and then head back and report their findings. That might have been what they were doing. But no, that is clearly not what happened, because all of the Cipher Pol agents, all of the agents of the world government were captured by Road, his Crow Munin, and then brought into the diorama Lego City. And those were the people that we see when the Straw Hats are walking around the town, and we see that old dude on top of a grasshopper bicycle, kind of very similar to Frankie's bicycle that he makes out of that crayfish in Strong World. So he shows up and he's just like, hey there, you're new to the land of the gods, huh? Well, I'm Old Man Grasshopper. We actually don't know his name. He didn't introduce himself, so I'm just going to call him Old Man Grasshopper. That dude could have been like a Cipher Pol 8 agent. Now, I'm sure there were other people in the diorama city, but, like, you know, that weren't Cipher Pol agents. They might have just been pirates or regular civilians, although what regular civilians were doing in the waters around Elbaph that deep into the New World, that actually did kind of, like, bug me a little bit, that, like, regular civilians would be there. Anybody that would have ended up in that city that would have been captured by Munin, yeah, they would have been rather unique in their own right, like, to even be that close to Elbaph, okay? But no, a good chunk of them, if not all of them, are Cipher Pol agents, and it was just mentioned offhandedly, but I want to delve into that a little bit, because that kind of kicked off this arc, and we never really touched upon what happened to the people in that city since then, okay? They were beginning to escape, like as soon as Nami lightning bolted Road, they were all like, the sun god has been felled! Let's get out of here, let's move, let's move, let's move! Because they had the impression, like, whenever Road showed up and was, like, stomping around the Lego City, they were all like, oh yes, great sun god, we praise you! You are the glorious sun god! But you got the impression that, like, when the sun god was gone and out of earshot, and they were all coming together, they were like, yeah, we know he's not the fucking sun god, but he's trapped us in this Lego City, we can't get out, people have tried to escape, they get devoured by giant animals, we don't know what's going on here, we're trying to just make it day by day. Oh, sun god, hey, oh, sun god, glorious sun god, these interlopers have invaded your domain and have ruined your mighty one-way mirror. I mean, they've destroyed the sky itself. Surely you must smite them with your awesome god god powers. And then the second that Nami electrocuted him, they're like, okay, this is our chance to get out of here. Let's go. So they went one way. They went like into the castle, I think. The Straw Hats, like Luffy broke through the wall and they just jumped out into the winterscape of the underworld, right? And they made their way up the rope bridge that way. They didn't even care about the other people, you know, which is interesting. Like, I can understand Luffy not caring. It was a little weird, though. I feel like Usopp or Nami would have at least said something. Sanji would have said something. Maybe Chopper, he was there too. Been like, hey, are we gonna help the people that were trapped there? And Luffy's like, I'm not a hero. We're pirates. They can help themselves. They'll be fine. Okay, I guess. I mean, like, whatever. I mean, they didn't really have a... It's not like the Straw Hats went into the village and sat down with all the people there and had, like, an interaction. That actually, you know, it was kind of weird that did not happen. And now that I'm actually thinking about it, it's probably a good reason Oda did not do that, because if the Straw Hats would have followed the old man, if they would have been like, I'm old man Grasshopper, come back with us to the village, I can provide you some food and some shelter and lodgings, and then let's say the Straw Hats did that. For one thing, that would have extended that little mini arc longer than it had to be, and it's like, there's other stuff going on. We want to get to the actual area of Elbaph. We want to get to giants and castles and Loki and huge trees and everything like that, right? And rainbow bridges. We want to get to all that. We're not going to spend that much time in the diorama city, but let's assume, like a what-if scenario, the Straw Hats would have went back to that village and met everybody there and sat down and all that, okay? And they were eating their food, which was like, I think rice. It was like millet or something like that. Like a singular rice grain is their food. And they have like just a big trough of water that they have to like take like cups out of, because that's what Road is giving them. He's treating them like pets, right? Well, anyway, let's say they sat down with these people and they were talking to them, like interrogating like what's going on here, right? I imagine the people would at first have to be like, they would be like playing the roles that Road was giving them, because this was like his fantasy like city is like, oh yes, you will all be part of this fantasy realm. So like the Straw Hats go up to a lady and they're like, ah yes, my name is Meredith and I am the town's apothecary. I sit here all day with my pestle and mortar and I make herbs and various medicines. Like they're all like NPCs they're forced to play. Like forced LARPing is basically what Road was giving them. And the Straw Hats are like, okay, Meredith, yeah, who's that guy over there? Oh, that's Bodger. He's the town's blacksmith. He spends all day hammering with his grandfather's hammer. This is a, you know, Viva La Dirt League reference. But anyway, yeah. So like those are the characters they're forced to play. But maybe if the Straw Hats like push them a bit, like they would get like, hey, like, what's going on here? Who are you? And Meredith is like, okay, my name is not freaking Meredith. I'm not a apothecary. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I work for the government. I'm part of Cipher Pol. We were captured a while ago. See, that might have went south really quickly if they announced themselves as government agents and the Straw Hats were like, oh, okay, so you work for the government, right? Like, so probably a good reason why they didn't go into the village and talk to them, but they're still around, right? I don't think they all would have died. They got out and they're in the castle somewhere, or maybe they escaped. They're in the primordial world, but hey, if they're government agents, then they at least know, like, the Rokushiki, right? They probably know Soru and Geppo. They know how to get around and survive. So maybe eventually they could avoid the underworld and make it up to the Sun Layer. They should probably be okay. And maybe they could be relevant at some other point so we can talk to them and, like, figure out what was going on and everything like that. Maybe the Straw Hats could even, like, capture one, interrogate him like Old Man Grasshopper and be like, what are you doing here? And then he could tell them all about Loki and their mission and what they were about to do. And that could, because, like, Nami and Luffy and Zoro are heading to the castle and then heading down to the primordial world right now to free Loki or talk to Loki. So what if, like, one of the other people from the Lego City wanders into the Western Village and then the other Straw Hats capture him and then they're like, what's going on here? And then he kind of fills those Straw Hats in on what's going on, like Usopp, Sanji, and like Brooks' group right now, okay? And then Frankie and Chopper and Robin are way back at the Warrior Spring in the Owl Library. Straw Hats have broken up. They were broken up into a bunch of different groups, and then they came together really quickly to have that reunion with Saul, and then they immediately broke up again. Anyway, so the reference I was talking about earlier, the 90s reference, is the idea that Road kind of ended up saving the day in a weird way with his creepy-ass hobby, all right? Because, like, he ended up preventing Cipher Pol agents from invading Elbaph and reporting back to Marie Joie about Loki. So remember that old episode of The Simpsons from season 3 where it's Homer defined and you have the Homer dictionary definition? Homer, noun. Number 1, American bonehead. Number 2, you pull a Homer to succeed despite idiocy. That's Road right now. He is by no means a hero. He is still a horrible person that just kidnapped humans and threw them in his city and forced them to LARP. You know, what worse fate can you imagine? But, like, he ended up kind of helping out in a really bumbling kind of way, you know, because it's probably not a good idea to allow the Cipher Pol agents of the world government to be wandering around Elbaph, you know, unimpeded and reporting back to them about, like, we found Loki's location. He's in the underworld or something like that, right? They could have also went into the village and, like, you know, spied on the giants and reported back and everything and really got the lay of the land. Road is kind of a hero, but not really, okay? I could see him even bragging about this. I could be like, hey, yeah, so guys, I was the guy that saved you because the government was trying to invade Elbaph, and I protected everybody using my Lego city. In fact, I had Munin scout out and personally capture anybody that looked a little suspicious. So that's what I was doing, really. I was saving you guys. And then Gerd is just looking at him just like, you're an idiot, Road. No, that's not what you were doing. You never mentioned that. It was a complete accident that you ended up capturing people that were trying to spy on us. Yeah, but, you know, like, it all worked out at the end of the day. So, like, I'm kind of the greatest hero in Elbaph history, right? And then Gerd takes out, like, a paddle and smacks him. And then Road likes it. So there we go. We could go with that. There's a direction there, right? Yeah, sure. You know, it actually also makes me wonder how Oda's going to handle Road's character, especially since Road is going with the Straw Hats now to the castle and then go to free Loki. Like, what is Road's interaction with Loki going to be? Is Road going to say anything to him? Because they're, like, roughly, they're the same age. They were born at the same time. I'm not saying Oda's going to try to do, like, a whole redemption thing for Road, but I am saying his interactions with Gerd are very funny. And it would be kind of interesting if, like, they have a fight at some point with the main enemies of the arc, like maybe the Gods Knights or something, and, like, the new giant warrior pirates have to team up all together. So even though they're not, like, a fan of Road's behavior, they still all fight together. And maybe Road and Gerd team up, and it's like, Gerd hates him, and Road likes it, but, like, together they're actually a really powerful, devastating, like, tag team. You know, like working together, they have, like, a combo move or something that's actually really, really powerful. Maybe something along those lines. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, he apologized begrudgingly. You know, they had to beat the crap out of him. He's like, I'm sorry for kidnapping you guys and throwing you in the Lego city. I'll never do it again. And Zoro's like, yeah, no worries. I almost cut your head off, but no worries. It's fine. You know? And Road's like, okay. You know, so we'll find out maybe a little bit more about Road. I think he's going to stick around as a very prominent character in Elbaph. I don't think Oda was just kind of like it's a one-and-done sort of gag. He captures them, and then after that, he's gone, and we never really interact with him again. No, I think it seems very clear that we are going to stick around with Road for a little bit. So we're going to learn a little bit more about the new giant warrior pirates and all that, and we'll see where that goes. But yeah. Also, something very important to bring up. Gunko and Shanks' brother arrived via summoning circle, okay? Like, at the castle of King Harald, which I've mentioned before. King Harald was obviously trying to open up Elbaph to the world and ally with the world government. That probably allowed, like, he might have been the one to install the summoning circle himself. He was in contact with the world government, and they were like, yes, I will draw a summoning circle, okay? We know the Gorosei can enter via summoning circle. Eam could probably do so as well. And now we also know the Gods Knights are capable of using the summoning circle, okay? Now, we don't know exactly how this works. We don't know if Eam was giving them the power and then they used that power to summon, or like Shanks' brother and Gunko had to go to the Gorosei, so Garling has a yokai form now probably, and he's capable of using the summoning jutsu on his own. Maybe Shanks' brother and Gunko went to Garling and Garling ordered them to go to Elbaph, and he's the one that, like, opened the summoning channel for them in order to access it. At the very least, we know this much. That summoning circle was there long before, like King Harald had died. We don't know when King Harald died exactly. We know that the Warrior Spring and, like, the Owl Library and the school started about 20 years ago. He was still alive then. Loki was captured and brought back to Elbaph after he killed the king. He went out to sea. Shanks caught him, brought him back. That was 6 years ago. So sometime like longer than 6 years ago, but not as long as 20 years ago. Somewhere in that gap is where King Harald was murdered, okay? The summoning circle was already there, which means that the Cipher Pol, in theory, could have used it, but they didn't. So that means I'm assuming the Cipher Pol agents were not given that authority. Either they can't use the summoning circles, or the government, the higher-ups, just don't tell them about it, and it's like, no, you're not. Even like Cipher Pol 0, which you'd assume they would send Cipher Pol 0 at some point, right? Like, that's the way the Cipher Pol agencies work, as like the hierarchy, right? So, like, we have a mission for you to go to Elbaph and find out some intel on Loki. This probably happened after Shanks captured him and brought him back. So for, like, the last 6 years, this has probably been going on intermediately, okay? So, I don't know, like, Cipher Pol 1 is, like, the lowest rank, like the really, like, least concerned kind of issues. So I'm assuming they would maybe start with, like, 6 or 7, you know, sending Cipher Pols out. But if, like, Cipher Pol 8 was reporting or not reporting back. Like, look at what happened with Egghead, where we went Cipher Pol 7 and 8, and then we went to, no, I think it was 5, 7, and 8, and then they jumped to Cipher Pol 0. That's when Rob Lucci and Kaku and Stussy were going to Egghead and be like, all right, all these other Cipher Pol agencies were not reporting back. Now Cipher Pol 0 is going. So maybe some of those people in that city were members of Cipher Pol 0, because, like, sending agents to Elbaph, the land of the giants that has always been not allied with the world government, that is like the strongest army in the world, and you're personally looking for Loki to join, that does not seem like a job you would give Cipher Pol 4. Or even Cipher Pol like 7 or 8, to be honest with you. That seems like a Cipher Pol 9 or Cipher Pol 0 kind of job, okay? So we don't know how many people fully are in Cipher Pol 0, but, like, maybe some of them were. Now, the only problem with that is, if they were Cipher Pol 0 agents, wouldn't they have been able to break out on their own? And the answer to that is, yeah, they would have been. So I don't think any Cipher Pol 0 agents are there, but, like, it'd be weird if there wasn't. You know, maybe, well, hey, here's the thing. They did mention that some of them did try to escape, and they got eaten by the snake and, like, the crow and stuff like that, right? So maybe there were some high-ranked, you know, agents in there. Maybe there was a Cipher Pol 0 agent, but he wasn't like a masked agent. He wasn't like as strong. Remember, Spondum is part of Cipher Pol 0. That's really important to keep in mind, okay? They're not all badasses, all right? They're not all on the level of Lucci and Kaku and Stussy and Joseph. Remember Joseph? Or Maha or anybody like that. They're not all on that level. The masked agents are. So Kaku, Stussy, and Lucci were masked agents. Spondum is not. So, yeah, it could have just been some low-ranking members of Cipher Pol 0, some unmasked agents that were in there, and they're like, hey, we know the Rokushiki. We could get away. Now, obviously, if you had the power like that Lucci had, he could have easily broken out of that diorama city. He could have kicked the shit out of the snake and everything, and he could have made an escape, okay? Lucci could have defeated Road pretty easily, okay? But just a random run-of-the-mill agent that's like, I know Geppo, I know Soru, I'm going to break out of here. So they break out of the city, they get into the workshop, and then a giant snake just... I mean, they're not all, like, look at Nero, who was the, you know, the intern in Cipher Pol 9, the sea weasel that Lucci killed. You know, he fought against Frankie, and he only knew 4 of the 6 powers, so they're not all the same, all right? So, yeah, maybe it was Spondum. Maybe, oh, that would be great. We haven't seen Spondum in a hot minute. What if Spondum was an agent that was sent to Elbaph, and then he ended up in the city? We just never saw him because the Straw Hats never went into the city. Oh, that would have been funny as hell. Like, Spondum was there the whole time. That would have been great. Or maybe he got eaten by a snake. Maybe he's like, I can get out of here. He got eaten by a snake. Okay. But no. So, yeah. They are probably going to show up again at some point. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if they showed up at the banquet, like pretty soon, okay? Because if the Strats are all broken up in these different, like, segments right now, that would really work. Like, all the Giants are kind of drunk right now, and they're kind of, like, you know, passed out and just be like, oh, this is a crazy banquet. And then the other Strats, like Usopp and, you know, Brook are there, and Sanji's there, and they're all kind of hanging out with the Giants. And then while everybody is just kind of chilling, just kind of relaxing, not much really going on, that's when this dude wanders into the village. Old Man Grasshopper wanders in, and he's like, hey, you. blonde hair guy. Remember me? And then Sanji looks down and he's kind of like, oh, yeah. You were the guy from the village. Yeah, shut up. Get down here. Be like, okay, yeah, all right. Where is everybody? You know, it's like, how do I get out of here? How do we escape? We're getting the hell off of Elbaph. Be like, come on, man. These giants are cool, you know? And then maybe some stuff happens and we learn about their mission and everything, and then the Straw Hats learn about Loki, and they're like, okay, you're coming with us. Because the Luffy never told them about Loki. That's important. So if that guy tells them about Loki, then Sanji, Usopp, and everybody are like, we need to go find this Loki guy. Wait, where's Luffy? Where's Nami at? Like, Sanji's going to notice Nami's not there and be like, wait a minute. Loki? Underworld? Okay, let's go. And then that kind of brings all the other Straw Hats in on it, and that kind of gets the groups back together. We could do that, right? Okay. Yeah, and then we could also, I don't know, tag along with Old Man Grasshopper for a little bit. Maybe he knows some stuff. Maybe he has a cool personality. Maybe he ate a devil fruit. I don't know. But be cool. You know, it's just a thing because we just kind of were there in the Lego City and then we never referenced it again. But yeah, that's how it goes. I just wanted to bring that up because it's such a side thing that like probably nobody cares about, but I do. So I wanted to mention it. Anyway, that was the video. Hope you all enjoyed. And before we end out, let's go into tree facts. This is going to be a fun one. The letter W. We're going to be talking about a classic right here. You know, I didn't want to go fancy with it. Let's just talk about the weeping willow. Oh, why does the willow weep? It's so weepy. Okay, so the weeping willow, it originated in China, but it's all over the world right now. It's a very iconic tree. It has a very distinctive rounded canopy, and the way the leaves and the branches fall, and rather pendulously, that's a fun word, pendulously, it kind of gives the impression of tears, you know, coming off of somebody's face, like the tree itself is crying. Something interesting is its a taxonomical name is the Salix babylonica. And it's called that because there's a line in the Bible that implies the tree is from Babylon originally, you know, like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and everything like that. That's actually not the way it's interpreted, but that's like, it just ended up being that way for the taxonomical, like Latin translations. That's how that goes. It has an extremely shallow root system. It grows in like, you know, large bodies of water, like swampland and marshland and stuff like that. Very beautiful looking tree. I mean, like it is green and then it's gold and it's glorious, like when the sun streams through it there. Let's see. It resembles, because of the way it looks, sorrow and mourning is kind of the representation, but it can also represent resilience and survival, you know, so it's like two sides of this, you know, like a lot of trees represent death, but they also represent life. This represents mourning, but also represents survival, like you can make it through. It always perseveres, all right? But it is a relatively frail tree, like the wood can be damaged with like high winds and storms, and because the root system is so shallow, it can get knocked over as well pretty easily. But it's a very fast-growing tree and very nice to look at. So there's the weeping willow. Next up, we're going to be covering letter X. So I'll have to look up into some X trees for that. Some X-ray trees. Trees that output X-rays. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching, signing out. Also, say hi to Bjorn. Bjorn and his cell phone.